home before midnight, if you've been day drinking,
yes, yeah,
it's still lethal. Even, the last time we went out, and I made it home for about 11, and the next day I woke up and I was like, nah, I still have a really sore head. But then I remember when we left Rufus, and it was just this sea of empty glasses on the table, and it was like, oh shit, we did that.
Yeah, when I look back on the transactions on my app for the Monzo app, and it was all Rufus. And I thought, that's a third of what we were drinking.
Exactly. That's what I thought as well, because when I look back, you see Bucks at the top and then Rufus, and I was like, and of course, Sammy and John will have been buying rounds in between then as well. So actually, however many transactions you have, times it by 3.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of like, did we drink that much? Because it was over quite a period of time, obviously.
It was, yeah.
But yeah, I did feel it.
It still hurts,
well.
yeah. Plus, I was having to buy doubles because I couldn't carry the 3 small glasses up the stairs. The taller glasses were easier, so at least that was my logic anyway. Yeah.
It's decent logic, let's face it.
Yeah.
So what did you see at the cinema yesterday?
Wolfman.
And I can tell by your face it wasn't a great experience.
I had such high hopes. I
haven't read your review, right? So I genuinely don't know what your reaction would be there. I wasn't like building up or anything.
No. There was a lot of it that I enjoyed. The actual transformation is incredible. Like really, really well executed. Christopher Abbott is fantastic in it, and I really enjoyed him in Possessor, so I wasn't surprised that he was good in this as well. And the soundscape is really incredible because a lot of it is you start to sort of almost like lose your hearing but hear what he hears instead, so certain noises are amplified and other noises you can't hear, which I think is a really good disorientating experience. However, the script is really bad and Julia Garner, who I loved in Ozark, is just given quite literally nothing to do. Like, see if your husband, as I said to Chris, if he came home and he was halfway turned into a wolf and was roaring in my face, I wouldn't just be standing there completely, like there was just nothing going on. And there's a wee kid in it as well who, to be quite honest with you, I was like, she's slowing you down, cut her loose and run. So there's like it almost, and I did say this in the review, I hate to say this, but part of me feels like it's a bit of a cash grab. Like The Invisible Man did so well, so we'll make this. Chris, he said to me, he was like, that reeks of studio interference. He was like, that doesn't feel like the same type of film, from, Upgrade, Invisible Man, all the really good stuff that he's produced in his career. It was like a solid like 2.5 out of 5, because there was stuff that I thought was so well done that if I'd seen more of that, I would have probably loved it. I don't think that's going to do particularly well, because I think a lot of people will there's not enough horror in it for a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to talk about. Pick. But just I went in with expectations probably like up here, and then came out and was like, a lot of that didn't work for me, which is a shame. But you know what? It's 90 minutes. It's not going to trouble anyone's day if you go and see it. So how was William Tell? Because I obviously sat through Stockholm Bloodbath recently, where Claes Bang is cutting it about in period costume, being he's a villain in that. Talk me through. Was it good, bad, or what?
It was pretty bad, it was actually quite disappointing, because you could see what the intention was with the film. They'd had a meeting and said, look, we've got an opportunity here to tell a story about William Tell. Whether he's real or not is neither.
I was going to say, I don't know if he's a real person.
It's the same sort of idea as like a lot of these sort of folk heroes, and maybe a grain of truth in there somewhere, but like Robin Hood and that kind of thing. So so it looks beautiful, because they've obviously said, look, we're going to be filming this in Switzerland, so we make full use of the mountains and everything, and they do. It looks great and everything, but the story itself is basically Austria is in charge of Switzerland. They rule over it with an iron fist, and this is Sir Ben Kingsley being actorly in this. He's got an eye patch as well, and the eye patch is gold with a carving of an eye inside it. to make it look even more sinister.
I mean, I want this. I need this in my life.
So he's Austrian, right? He wears black all the time. All of his troops in his army all wear black all of the time. So you're kind of going...
Getting the visuals, yep.
Yeah. I wonder where they're going with this, you know, why... Are they the bad guys, you know, kind of idea? And they're right next door to Germany, obviously. So you're thinking, what are we getting at here, you know? So you've got the plucky villagers, and they're just getting on with it, and, you know, they're getting overly taxed and all that. And things happen, and there starts to be a bit of an uprising. The problem with the film is the dialogue is awful, and it is absolutely dreadful, because nobody speaks, and nobody has a conversation. If there's two people standing on the side of a mountain, one of them is making a speech to the other person all the time. And it's in that sort of cod Shakespearean type language. And they've actually taken bits from Shakespeare as well. And it's just wee bits and phrases and things like that that you can, and you kind of go, this isn't very good. It's like everything's really stilted, and I mean, the acting talent on screen is really good. Cliff Bang is fantastic, you know. And you've got, obviously there was Ben Kingsley, and there's like a few people in it. You think you can do better than this. You have done better.
I hate that. You're like, did you just need to pay the mortgage this month?
Yeah.
That's a shame. Funnily enough, Stockholm Bloodbath, I had the opposite problem, was they were all like bloody like Cockneys and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is the thing is, it was a Scandinavian story using Scandinavian actors about obviously how Denmark and Sweden were at war with each other. Why were they all talking like, all right, governor? Like, I didn't get that.
Yeah, well, these were all thespians, you know, straight out of the actors' school, really kind of idea. And it was just didn't work. There's a couple of action scenes in it which worked quite nicely, but then you get to the end of the film and you realize it's not the end of the story. It's like about, well, I would say maybe about halfway through this. So there's a whole other story that's probably going to come on from this. Whether it actually gets made or not is another question, because this is not going to make any money, I don't think. I mean, it starts with the lead up to him shooting the apple off of his son's head, which is what everybody knows. And then it cuts away, tells like a sort of backstory. And he was a crusader, and he was I know, I don't quite understand that. So he was away in the Crusades with one of his colleagues that he meets up again afterwards. And it's so his wife comes from there, and his son isn't really his son, it's his wife's son from another relationship, so they are outsiders, if you like. And it's all, and you're kind of thinking, I don't know. And does it at least use the overture? Is there no, nothing like that. That I think they probably thought, I think we're pushing this as far as we can, lads. Let's not go there.
Honestly, bring back Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. That's the type of folklore shit that I can fully get behind.
Yes.
Alan Rickman saying, what is it? Cancel Christmas, no more merciful beheadings. That's,
So that wasn't particularly good, which, I mean, I was looking forward to it, because I thought, you know, you're always seduced by the fact that there's decent acting talent on screen, but no, it was just a bit rubbish, I'm afraid. And
oh dear.
When I write the review, it will reflect that, unfortunately, which is just, you know, it's just the way of it, I suppose. But, you know, if you don't expect too much from these films, then you're not going to get disappointed. But, you know, it was an opportunity wasted, I think. And it wasn't a massive budget or anything either, which was shown in some of the fight scenes. You could kind of see.
I feel like you can't go into these. I mean, if it's a historical thing, like almost like The Witch, right, where you can have no budget because but when it's like that and you expect a big army scene or a big battlefield, like that sort of beautiful sort of panning shot they all have, but it's two armies running towards each other, you can't really skimp on the old they'll budget for that.
Yeah, and you always have an idea of who the bad guys are, even if there's a scene where it's supposedly friends, you're kind of going, yeah, that guy there, he's a bad guy, you know. Basically, by the way, he's scowling over, you know, screen left. It's just See, that's the curse of watching so many films. You just notice these things really, really quickly, rather than just skimping over them and saying, yeah, the film's all right, yeah, you know, it's okay.
I think it was my thing as well, is like that with Wolfman, it did feel like a real waste of an opportunity. Now, I know Blumhouse have said that they're kind of taking on the dark universe, as it were, because obviously there's talk of, as a Creature of the Black Lagoon, there's talk of that as well, and obviously they've brought out this, but I just don't think this Wolfman is going to do well, because I think if enough people go to see it initially and go, yeah, there was bits of it that worked, but actually, and if you're like a hardcore horror person and you're expecting out and out horror, you're going to be so disappointed. So I think enough word of mouth is probably going to not see this perform at box office. So you wonder if that's another dark universe that's going to end up in the bin, because
they're not really pushing it, are they? The sort of dark universe aspect of it. They're saying they're making the films from it, but there's been no indication that they're really going to join anything up. I think they've been quite coy about that. I think if the films that they're making all kind of work, then they will include elements from those films into sort of a big meeting up type film, you know.
Maybe, yeah.
And any ones that don't work, they'll just kind of go, yeah, well, the Wolfman was away getting a flea treatment, you know. So he couldn't make it today, that kind of idea, you know. But yeah, I think they've been quite coy about the whole thing, because they don't want to give it a label that they have to meet. And that was the problem with the Dark Universe, because they had so much upfront about it. About this is how it's going to go. The Mummy's going to kick it off, and then of course when the Mummy didn't kick it off properly, they just had to quietly fold everything away and we're not going to do that anymore. See that photograph that's on the internet?
Oh, that photograph gave me so much hope.
I know.
Oh, it's just the thing is, we saw really good trailers yesterday, like Oz Perkins the Monkey, which I think I'm probably going to absolutely lose my mind at. And then obviously Soderbergh's Presence, which I'm so intrigued by. Like that concept looks phenomenal. And then another Soderbergh film that I didn't know about with Cate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender called Black Bag, where it's like two, I think, spies or something, and she sort of betrayed the government, so he has to obviously come after her, which I'd never even heard of, but, you know, looks interesting enough.
I've seen the trailer for that one. I saw that maybe last week. Just it was one of these ones that popped up, you know, a recommended trailer on the TV more than anything else. And I thought, oh, that looks nice. And again, I hadn't really heard very much about it. There seems to be a few films that are coming out with that sort of thing. You know, you don't have a lot of like pre-publicity for them. Like, for instance, William Tell. That wasn't sort of.
I think there's a reason for a lack of publicity probably in that film. But Black Bag, you think, great director and writer, obviously. Good, strong cast, it looks like, as well. So you just kind of wonder how that's sort of fallen under the radar a wee bit. But the two sort of out-and-out horrors that we saw in the trailers, I thought, yeah, definitely go and see them and probably not sleep for a week after, especially the monkey. Like, I see those toys in general really, really scare me. So the thought of, because I think there was a thing with Oz Perkins this week, and he's like, it's the most blood you'll ever see on screen. And I was like, I'm scared, but also I want to go and see it. It might give Abigail a run for its money, because you always say that's the most amount of blood. So
yeah, well, apparently it was. They ran out of blood supplies for cinemas. You know how it's like, it's some sort of like
syrupy thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's syrup, isn't it? And they just dilute it as they need it. So, and it's because it pops on screen, because it looks so good on screen. Because if you actually see real blood, it doesn't quite look like, it's kind of redder and lighter. But apparently that does. Well, they're not going to like cut an extra open. Right, you're the blood guy. We need a pint now. Kind of, you know, just spill it there. We'll be fine. We'll be able to work around it, you know. But no, obviously, yeah, that's a different type of film altogether.
Yes, yeah, I think the type of film you might see in Strange Days, funnily enough.
Oh yeah, definitely, yes. Yeah, so I mean, what else did I see? Obviously, I saw Emmanuel as well, which was it's a bit of a nothing of a film, to be perfectly honest. which it's supposed to be. I mean, I read some of the sort of publicity on it, pre-release publicity, and it's all about, this is we're redefining Emmanuel. It's all about female empowerment and all this, and you go, no,
yeah, because I thought that was a porn film or like a softcore porn film.
It was, yeah. It's a soft porn film, a series of films from the 1970s onwards. And the initial ones, it was Sylvia Christel, who was the star of it, and she was in all these films where Emmanuel travels about various places. And then they did a Carry On. I don't think she was in the Carry On film, but it was a Carry On Emmanuel film.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But yes, so it's based on books, I think it is.
Right, okay.
Or the original concept, because in the very end credits, the Emmanuel estate is credited as being a contributor to it. So it must be, it's obviously like copyright protected and all, so there must be something like with books and films and what have you. But yeah, it's I don't know who it's aimed at, because it's not really aimed. Problem. It's not really aimed at the people who would go and see like the 50 Shades films, because it's not explicit enough. It's not aimed at people who would just watch porn, because they would just go and watch porn. They don't need a story,
Yeah, and I suppose there's not even like a nostalgia element to it from the 70s thing, when it's such a massive reboot in terms of like, obviously cast and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. And nobody actually mentions her name during the film either, which I found very weird. She is a quality control checker for a big corporation, and she's going to Hong Kong to do a quality control assessment of a hotel, this luxury hotel run by Naomi Watts, of all people. And she just plays it straight. She doesn't have any like sex scenes or anything like that. She's the manager of a hotel, and she's there really to assess her and to assess the hotel. And that's the story. That's it. And it's just her doing this assessment and also trying to figure out why a guy that she wanted to have sex with didn't want to have sex with her. And that's pretty much it. And in between times, there's various like sort of wee sex scenes. Okay. And you're kind of going, yep. Yeah, that's an hour and 3/4. Yep, thanks.
An hour and 3/4? Jesus.
Yeah. It could easily have been a 90-minute film, but it's not very good. And like the main actor, whose name I don't know, she's a French actor, is not very good at all. And this Naomi Watts is good because she's obviously sort of top tier, but. Yeah, there's not a lot of great performances in it, and it's just it's dull more than anything else.
Oh dear.
But again, I don't think that's going to do particularly well. I don't think there's going to be an Emmanuel cinematic universe.
I can't, as you say, I can't imagine who that's for, and I think that's going to be a real problem for films if there's not a clear, like anything else you do, like in sort of like marketing, if there's not a clear audience in mind, then it's probably not going to do that. And I'm not saying that everything has to be like a sort of popcorn blockbuster, because obviously there's different audiences for different things. But if you're looking at that, obviously, and as you say, it's the curse of watching a lot of films. But if you look at something and go, well, who was that for? That is a problem, because it's never going to find itself. Like, does it sit in an art house cinema? Does it sit in the multiplex? Where does it go? And who asked for the remake as well?
Exactly. Yes. It's one of these ones you would think that would, at best, it's actually Netflix has got some sort of participation in it. It's not getting released on Netflix here. It's obviously in cinemas here, but their logo was there during the titles as well, with the participation of Netflix. So I'm assuming that it will come on to Netflix at some point because, so they must think there is an audience for this. Or is it just more content that they can put out there?
That definitely feels like the way, isn't it?
It's just, I mean, it's very cynical.
No, but I think we have every right to be cynical, because I think that, especially with Netflix and platforms like that, where you never really quite get the viewing figures or anything like that, it all feels very cloak and dagger. So you just think this is probably just something else so you can see you've got a new release. and there might be some teenage boy somewhere who Googles Emmanuel and obviously gets loads of porn results and thinks, oh, I'm going to watch this on Netflix, but it's absolutely not that at all.
Yep, it's not going to meet the user's needs.
Yes,
shall we say? Yeah. I also watched a film on Prime called Canary Black. Have you seen that? Kate Beckinsale film. It's one of these ones that it pops up on Prime all the time. It's a mid-budget spy action thriller, and it was okay. It was quite formulaic, and you kind of knew what was going on in it. And Kate Beckinsale is running around wearing tight outfits, shooting folk mainly. It was all right, but again, that is setting up a series of films. I know.
Why is everything setting up a universe?
I know. Well, it didn't explicitly set things up, but in the last 5 minutes, it kind of, it left it very, very open. There was certain things that happened in the sort of final act, and you go, well, all right, so they're not dead, and she's got away with it to some extent, but it was all right. It's one of the last films with Ray Stevenson in it, because he died just after it was made. But he actually dies in the film anyway, so it's not going to be a blocker for any elements. And there was a dedication to him at the end of the film as well. But there's loads of these films around now. It's like we've been talking, sort of mid-budget.
Yeah,
films,
and they're always spy thrillers.
Yes, well, they're relatively cheap to make because they shoot them in European cities that have got all these tax breaks. So it's all like Prague and things like that they're shot in, and this one was actually based in the city itself. So it was actually named and everything. So it was looks very nice, and obviously it's sort of oldie worldy as well, because it's not just all gleaming like skyscrapers and things like Emmanuel. That was in Hong Kong, for instance. So that was all.
Right.
So but it was fairly decent, and there's loads of these films. That's the thing now. There are lots and lots of them. People have seen that they can get these films made by streamers. It just automatically goes out on a streaming service, and they just watch it, and then 2 years later another one pops up. Oh, we could watch that as well. And you can see that because of the likes of like Black Doves, for instance.
Yeah, I wanted to watch that.
Yeah, and that's a nice 6-part spy thriller, and it works really, really well. It's an excellent TV show. So you can see there's a market for that, either in sort of longer form 6 hours or shorter form 2 hours. Yeah, it's all good. But I've got real problems with action scenes now. I think the likes of the John Wick films has really spoiled things for so many action films, because there's so many scenes now that you get with people and they are fighting with each other, but they don't just shoot the other person anymore. You know, that like Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he just shoots the guy, and I know that was kind of done because he wasn't well, but these are all meant to be like professional assassins or whatever, which don't exist, obviously, because we've watched him. But it's almost like a last resort. They'll shoot somebody, they'll find everything that's around them to hit somebody else with, like bottles and candles and all sorts of stuff, and then they'll, oh wait a minute, I've got a gun in my hip. Yeah, I'll start shooting you. For fuck's sake, really? Forgot
what your job was for 5 minutes there.
Yeah. So they can do a bit of sort of hand-to-hand combat because it looks good on screen. But when you actually think about it, you go, no, that's a lot of nonsense. So with the likes of the John Wick films, there's a reason behind that they don't have a gun with them or whatever, you know, or they do have a gun and they've got bulletproof suits on. Yeah. So that kind of takes you out of it a wee bit with these films, but that's amazing.
There's always that in films, though. It's like somebody's holding a gun to somebody's head and they're like, well, I'm going to shoot you, and you're like, so do it then, don't have this 5-minute conversation, because obviously the other person's going to get away.
That was very much in Canary Black as well, because there was a couple of times where she got captured by the bad guys, and instead of them just saying, you're a pest, and like shoot her in the head, they would tie her up, or they would chain her up against the wall or something and say, oh, you're not going to like this. And you're saying, well, really, we don't actually need this to happen. And that happened in another film I watched as well called The Shadow Strays, which was on Netflix. It's an Indonesian spy thing, and that's the same. Rather than killing the person who's creating all this havoc for an evil organization, they decide to like sort of, you know, tie her down on a chair, and you're thinking, no,
I know.
You've got nothing to get. She hasn't got information.
Yeah, death is the only way out of this.
Yes, and they don't do it obviously now. Oh, wait a minute! Oh, she's worked her way out and she started killing people, you know, with bricks or whatever, you know, whatever's to hand, the usual.
Oh dear. I mean, I watched Number 24 on Netflix, which was a great wee film that I've never heard of, but it said it was like number 3 on Netflix for the day. So that was about a true story of the resistance within Norway within World War II, and it sort of flashes back between an old man giving like an assembly, I suppose you would say, at a school, and then flashes back to him in his youth and all the sort of stuff they get up to. And there was like, obviously, you know how it turns out, right? Because you see him as an old man at the start. But there is a couple of moments where I was, you know, where there was other characters involved where you were kind of going, oh, this is a bit hairy, or, you know, obviously operations go wrong and things like that. So that was actually well worth the watch. And I've never heard of it and just thought, you know, because it was ranked so highly, whether that means anything or not, I don't know. But I thought, yeah, this was really good.
So which side were you rooting for?
Obviously the resistance, John.
I'm just thinking there's a real conflict there because of all the Nordic stuff.
I've got my Scandi jumping on and everything. Yeah. But I think it was interesting though, because obviously Norway was sort of infested with that. Obviously Quisling is the sort of byword for traitorism and all the rest of it these days. So I thought it was quite interesting. They're obviously trying to do some PR for their country to show, you know, look, not all of us gave in quite so easily. So it was a good story though, and it just goes, it's one of these things where I just, you know, with everything going on in the world, it does make you wonder, because a couple of the kids sort of put their hand up in the assembly and they're like, you know, why did you decide to do it? And he's like, well, you don't know how you're going to react until you're in these situations. And then there's a big roundup of the resistance and they get arrested and things like that. And the sort of leader of the cell, you know, says to him, how do you think you're going to react under torture? And he's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you obviously you don't know what you're, you know, there's a scene where I think they burn somebody's face with a gas lamp. And it's like, until that's actually happening to you, you know, it's all very well saying, no, I wouldn't crack and I won't tell anyone anything. But, you know, if they're burning you from the outside, you probably would give a name or two. So that genuinely was a good watch though. And I also watched The Girl with the Needle, which is tremendous, like genuinely so good. I think it might be Oscar nominated, I'm not sure. It's Vic Carmenson, who's in quite a lot of Danish things, and Trina Dyrholm, who's a very well-known name in Danish cinema as well. And it's about a young woman who, oh God, the poverty is so miserable. So it's like it's just after World War I, and it's obviously all these poor working class women. And Trina Dyrholm says, you know, I'll take your baby in and I'll look after them, make them go to a nice home. But obviously, as the film progresses, you realise that's not what she's doing. And it's all black and white, so it's very moody. And there's like the sort of lead character, her husband comes home from World War I. And do you remember John Huston's character in Boardwalk Empire? And he's got the half mask.
Yeah.
Her husband comes home like that, and the only job he can get is like in a freak show and stuff like that. And it just shows you like the poverty of it and just the sheer misery of, you know, if you've genuinely not get a pot to piss in, then like it was a really good film, but quite unsettling at times, but also just really beautifully shot and stuff like that, which I really appreciated. And as you know, I watched ILM for Murder the other day, which was a revisit. I've seen it before, but it's a good film. It was on iPlayer, and I thought I'm just going to sit and watch this again because it's a great film to watch. And obviously you can appreciate like it's a stage play, so that it's just that kind of, it reminds me of Rope in so many ways, because it is just that sort of kind of single location, not obviously one shot, but just kind of moving in and out, which is just it's really good to watch, because you always kind of think as well, like I love that scene where the American character comes in and he's like, well, you could just say that you did this, this and this, and you're like, oh, that's what you really did do, this is so good, how have you worked it out? So yeah, I thought that was a really good watch. And then last night, I can't believe I'm saying this, I've never seen this before, I watched 28 Days Later. The new film, obviously, and the trailer for that kind of had me intrigued. And as we were walking to the cinema yesterday, Chris had said, I'm really looking forward to that. And I was like, do you know, I've never seen the original. And he's like, right, the minute we go home, the DVD's going on. And I absolutely loved it. And I've got so many questions now, having watched that I'm like, but, is the planes going, does that mean that it is just Britain? Or, it was so good. I thought Christopher Eccleston was great in it. Obviously just playing an absolute bastard. And I thought, how much fun did Cillian Murphy have basically just picking off the British Army one by one? Because obviously he's very Irish and very proud, and he was talking about singing Rebs at the Oscars when he won for Oppenheimer. So I thought he must have just had a ball. So I thought that was great to watch that, though. And I know there's 28 weeks later as well, so I'll watch that obviously before we see the new one. But yeah, total gap in my viewing. Chris was like, how did you not see it? And I was like, you need to remember, it was an 18 when it came out and I was 11. So there was no way I was sneaking into that. And it's just something I've never got round to. So, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was excellent. And I liked the fact that there was no sort of, yes, there was obviously a scientific experiment gone wrong, but it wasn't like zombies. It was just being consumed by rage, which I thought in itself was a really interesting concept. So yeah, I mean, looking forward to, obviously haven't seen the trailer for the new one, looking forward to seeing how that all sort of pulls together.
Yes, that's a good show. Actually, I have both of them here somewhere, I think. I've got a box set of movies, and it's got both 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. It's a Danny Boyle box set, and that's 2 of the films in it. So yeah, I think possibly give them a rewatch before. Well, definitely give them a rewatch, because I haven't seen either of them in years and years. Maybe something we could chat about. I was
thinking something we could talk about, because obviously that new one is coming out, and obviously a completely different cast again. So I think the new one's what, Aaron Taylor Johnson and Ralph Fiennes. God, those two are in everything at the moment.
Yes, yeah, pretty much, yes. Well, you want your James Bond and your M to get very used to.
Very good. Although I did post in the Moviescramble chat the other day that there's the rumours now about James Norton, because he was the only one in that scene not in a tux, and obviously you're contractually obliged not to appear in one, so the rumour mill's going again.
That seems a bit weird, doesn't it? Because, I mean, you could say that about a number of actors. But yes, it kind of makes sense that that's obviously been a contractual thing for James Bond. But I don't know.
I wonder if you're allowed to be pictured with any other drinks as well. No, but I'm being serious, because they're obviously they're sponsored by certain watches as well. So you've got your Omega, your Seamaster or whatever it's called, the watch that James Bond wears. You've got obviously in the last ones there was outrage because he was drinking a Heineken or whatever it was. And if you remember, was it Casino Royale, or was it the one after that, where they tie in with the Sony Ericsson phones as well?
That was Casino Royale, yes, that's right. Yeah,
so
because it was very prominent.
You're tied into these products quite, but the tux thing I didn't know, and obviously that's kind of set off the rumour mill as well. But then I haven't seen Aaron Taylor Johnson in the tux recently either, so... Yep.
Seen him without a top on quite a lot.
Yes, quite,
But not to the same. Yes, it's dragging on a bit though, isn't it?
I know, just announce it. Announce it, because I think the thing is, I genuinely think that, one, I think they'll just go with a white man, because I think that they don't, as a brand, they know that the core audience is not ready for a Bond of colour or a female Bond. But so just come out and say who it is. We all know that you need to go for somebody in their early to mid 30s so that you can get bang for your buck in terms of longevity out. So that does narrow the field down a wee bit in terms of sort of British actors, because I don't think they'll go for someone who's not British either. So just tell us already. Although obviously I know that there's been, Simmy sent us that article that basically Barbara Broccoli had fallen out with Amazon, hadn't she? So maybe there's a wee bit of to and fro there.
Yeah, but you kind of know what you're dealing with when you sign up with these companies. They're going to maximise their profits. So they're going to do a Bond,
a young Bond,
and
all that sort of thing.
They've been holding back in the young Bond stuff for years and years, and I don't.
Which is weird, because there are those books. Is it Anthony Horowitz? Is it him?
No, it was Charlie Hickson.
Oh, that's it. Sorry, Anthony Horowitz had written another Bond.
Yes,
hadn't he?
And Anthony Horowitz did the the other sort of young Bondish type.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what they were called. It was like Snakehead and things like that. It was Alex Rider. He did the
Is that what
Alex
it is?
Rider
Yeah.
books, and that's almost like a young Bond that's
Mm-hmm.
a teenage boy getting brought into the spy organisation.
Right.
And that's kind of the young Bond novels. That some of them are really good. I've read maybe about 3 or 4 of them, and they're pretty decent. The actual stories themselves, and you kind of think, why are they not capitalising on that?
I am surprised that there has not been either a series or some films that to tie into that, because I think that it seems an obvious path to go while you're waiting on the main event, as it were.
And if it works out, you've got somebody in the James Bond role that will mature into playing a Bond in the future as in the cinema as well, because like the timeline would actually work if you're. I mean, there was something like 6 books, so you're talking about either 6 movies or 6 TV shows.
Yeah.
So by the time actor reaches the sort of end of that, they'd be in their sort of late 20s anyway.
Yeah.
So quite easy to transition, and you can reboot the whole thing from there as well. Yeah. Well, I suppose, but they've obviously thought about all that as well. But yeah, they seem to be dragging us on. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because if you think that they want to try and make money from this franchise and continue to make money, then having like a 5-year gap is not really going to help. They should have had that announced, 3-year gap, got it all sorted, got everything in place. But yeah, it's just going on and on. But
I mean, plus the fact that he's dead, so there is that.
Yeah, that's a slight wrinkle.
Let's not forget this. Like, he definitely died at the end of that film. So, yeah, where they go from this, I don't know. Because I mean, I actually, it's not that I'm saying that I never want to see a Bond film again. That's not true. Because out of sheer nostalgia, I will always go and see a Bond film at the cinema. But part of me does wonder, like, is it like Marvel or is it like Disney, where you know, is there going to come a point where people are just going to be like, that's not going to sell tickets anymore?
Yep. But obviously, well, they've made all the money so far, so
that's true.
They will come back and continue to do so, I would imagine, in the future.
Yeah.